Lee was a Chicago Tribune reporter and a self-professed atheist. He had run a series of articles about Chicago's neediest people. And during that time, he came to know the Delgado family. They were comprised of Grandma Perfecta and granddaughters Jenny, who was 13, and Lydia, who was age 11. He recalled how unprepared he was when he walked into their two-room apartment for the interview. There were bare walls, no furniture or rugs, only a kitchen table with some rice in the cupboards. The girls had one short-sleeved dress apiece, and there was a thin gray sweater that they shared. On cold days when the girls would walk a half mile to school, one of the girls would wear the sweater for half the way, and then at that point would take it off and give it to the other sister for the rest of the journey. Perfecta would have loved to work, but she had very severe arthritis, and also because of her age, it was just impossible for her to be able to do that. Lee had done this article a few days before Christmas Eve, and so he went to visit the family on Christmas Eve. And when he went to their apartment, he was totally shocked by what he found when he walked into the door. Many of the subscribers were so touched by Lee's articles that they had sent the Delgado family furniture and appliances. They had also bought them coats and scarves and gloves. There were cartons and boxes of food and all kinds of Christmas goodies. In fact, so much so that their cupboards couldn't hold it all. Someone had also donated a Christmas tree, and beneath that Christmas tree were all kinds of different presents and thousands of dollars in cash. Lee was astonished by what he saw. He was very gratified and encouraged by the effect that his article had had. But he was even more surprised by what Perfecta and her granddaughters were doing, and that was they were preparing to give most of what they had received away. Lee asked, "Why are you doing this? Why are you giving away all of these beautiful Christmas gifts that were sent to you?" And Perfecta responded, "Our neighbors are still in need, and we cannot have plenty when they have nothing. This is what Jesus would want us to do." Lee was shocked by that. In fact, he was so dumbfounded he couldn't say anything for a while. But then he asked what they thought of this generosity which had been so abundantly given to them. Perfecta shared, "This is wonderful and good, but we've done nothing to deserve it. It's all a gift from God, and yet we celebrate his greatest gift tomorrow on Christmas Day, that being the gift of Jesus." Lee was speechless as he headed back to his office, and during that trip he realized the following. He had plenty in his life, and yet anxiety with it as well, while the Delgados had basically nothing, and yet knew generosity. Lee had it all and wanted more and more of it all, and yet the Delgados who had nothing were filled with hope, contentment, and spiritual certainty. And deep in his heart, Lee longed for what the Delgados had. And so, as we gather here this Christmas morning, I want to spend just a moment reflecting with you on exactly what it is the Delgados had that Lee wanted so deeply. Well, one of the things the Delgados had in spades was poverty. In fact, they were so poor that when Lee wrote an article about them and it hit the paper, there were so many generous subscribers that were touched by their need that they reached out to help them. How beautiful that is. And I just want to commend each one of you in the ways in which you have already reached out to people in your life over time who were in need. Like those subscribers, when they read about it or when they saw a need, you reached out to that person and you helped them. God bless you for that. And just realize how profound and how important it is for each one of us to continue to reach out to the needy that are in our midst. Another thing that the Delgados had as a result of that story was an incredible abundance. In fact, they had so much abundance that they didn't have enough room to store it all. And as I thought about this story, I thought, what a great problem for a poor family to have. I would have thought that with some of that money they had, they would have bought some shelving and began to put up all the stuff that they got, all of the food and all of the items and all the different things that they got so they could have stored it. I thought they would have opened up maybe a money market and put some of that cash in there, right? That would have made sense. And I would have thought they maybe would have been a little bit more secretive about all that they had so that they could have made it last for a while. I mean, all of that makes sense to me. And I think it makes sense to you as well. But Perfecta and her granddaughters also had neighbors, didn't they? And they had neighbors who were in need, poor neighbors just like them. And while they had plenty, they could not allow their neighbors who had nothing to not enjoy the kind of Christmas they were enjoying. And that's part of being a neighbor, isn't it? Sharing your heart with someone who's close to you and sharing the Christmas spirit and Christmas joy with them as well. And then Perfecta went on to share with Lee about the greatest gift of Christmas, the gift of Jesus Christ, and celebrating his birth. In our second lesson today, we read in Paul's letter to the Hebrews that Jesus Christ, the Son, is the radiance of God's glory. And that word radiance, as you look at the New Testament, actually only occurs one time. And it occurs in this lesson to the Hebrews. Actually, in the lesson that you're reading, it says the word reflection. I'm changing that to the NIV translation, radiance. I like it far better. I love that word radiance. It's just, I think it speaks to the reality of who Jesus is. He's bright. In fact, that's what the word means in the Greek. It means to beam forth brightness. And one of the realities for you and me is that if we were really to be in the presence of Jesus, it would be like being in the presence of the sun. If any of you, especially in this beautiful place we call home, Naples, ever took a moment to look at the sun, you realize you can only look at it briefly because it's so bright and overwhelming that you have to look away. And that's how bright and radiant Jesus is. He's so full of glory, so full of love, so full of light that we can only look on him for a moment. It's how beautiful he is. And what this says to us is that the very presence of Jesus radiates the glory and a heavenly light that transforms people's lives. One of the things that's true about someone that comes into the presence of Jesus or experiences him in some way like this is that they're going to do one of two things. Either they're going to open their hearts more fully to his radiant light and love and grace, or they're going to run the other way. Those are the basic two responses in the presence of Jesus. And what we find here today in this story is an atheist by the name of Lee being captivated by a poor family named the Delgados who have opened up the gift of Jesus, who have welcomed Jesus into their hearts, who have welcomed his love and his mercy and are living that out. Some of you may have noticed earlier, I had a little baggie here that I had to find a place to put at in the meantime, and in it are some Hershey's Kisses. And this was part of my children's sermon last night at the two services. And actually, there's 3 different kinds of Hershey's Kisses in here. There's a regular, there's a caramel, and I think this is menthol, the purple one, but I'm not sure. I haven't eaten it yet. Chocolate, just dark chocolate. I'm sorry. I'm going to have this after the service later on today. But what Father Christian and I did last night during this message, it was an experiential message. We gave out our Hershey's Kisses to each of the kids, and some of them said, oh, by the way, can I have another one for one of my friends? Some kid last night at the back of the church as we were leaving, he grabbed a handful and came back about 5 minutes later. He goes, no, someone stole my Hershey Kisses. Can I take some more? So these were a big hit. But anyways, what we invited the kids to do was as we gave them one of the Hershey Kisses, or 2 or 3, we invited them to open it up and to eat it. And then we asked them how it tasted, and of course they loved it. They wanted more. And we also invited them to reflect on the reality that part of the beauty of Christmas is about the giving and receiving of gifts, isn't it? And that a little later on, either that night or today, they'd be opening up their presents. And like the Hershey Kiss, they would need to open up their gift to find out what it was like. And what we invited them to do after that was to also be open to inviting the gift of Jesus into their life. And to taste and see that the Lord is good. As good as this Hershey's Kiss is, as delicious as it is, as great as it is, as much as one is not enough, Jesus is that much better. And so that's what was happening with Lee as he saw someone who had invited the radiant Jesus into their life, the loving Jesus, the grace of Jesus, the mercy of Jesus. They touched him. You see, if you are in the presence of someone who has said yes to Jesus, you know there's something different about them. And either you're attracted to them or you're repelled by them. But either one of those is going to happen in a big way. And one of the realities I think that the Lord is inviting you and I into is to realize that the Delgado family is a witness to us about what the presence and life of Jesus is all about. It's about being open to being a people who radiate the love of Jesus and share the love of Jesus. It doesn't mean that you and I can't have anything. It doesn't mean that the Lord won't bless us in so many different and abundant ways. But it does mean that we have a heart that is open and caring for the people that are around us. We have a heart that is full of the light and the love and the presence of Jesus, and that wants to share that with each and every person that we meet. It means that as we gather here today, we celebrate the gift of God in the person of Jesus Christ, and we open up that gift, and we welcome that gift into our heart.